cultures were ascending like flames as new identities found a home in the hearts of African American people.
The Harlem Renaissance was a time of a new awakening, as Black people developed new identities and new senses of their beings. Art, music, literature, and dance sprung new beginnings, and a new voice to the once silent Black culture. America was evolving into a diverse community. The melting pot was becoming more evident and vast. Colorful, vibrant music and other forms of art dawned hope in colored people across America.
Books became treasured and carefully analyzed as satires conveyed frighteningly true messages. The Harlem Renaissance birthed unforgettable novelists whose main message was to vindicate the movement and redeem American culture, as well as contribute to the enrichment of the melting pot American ideals were based on.
An unconventional lifestyle led to an exquisitely unconventional writing style for Wallace Thurman. Born and raised in California and later moving to New York, allowed Thurman to bring along a Western style of writing. His popularity attained both from being a heavy drinker and partier, gave him a platform to spread his message through multiple forms of art. He primarily focused on a realistic and sensationalized portrayal of lower classes of Black African Americans. His purpose was to give a message to African Americans, to embrace emotions on their own terms rather than to please Anglo-Americans. He also desired for the younger generation to oppose against programmatic and promotional ideologies of the older generation. Thurman is most well known for his novel, The Blacker the Berry. The novel explores discrimination within the Black community and how lighter skin is always higher valued than darker skin. Thurman used a very satirical strategy to describe the Black prejudice against darker skinned members of the same race. Thurman touches on controversial subjects such as colorism, discrimination by lighter skinned African Americans, and overall prejudice toward the Black community. He also touches on different standards that white critics use toward Black writers versus white writers. Thurman desired that all people, regardless of skin color, would be given the same treatment and judgment. Thurman had a very unique impact on the Harlem Renaissance and certainly contributed to enriching the American melting pot.
While many figures of the Harlem Renaissance decided to base their works off of political or creative ideology, Zora Neale Hurston did not. Instead, she wrote without a blatant political agenda, which earned a good deal of backlash from her peers. She also adopted the dialect of the Black South in many of her novels, giving her writing a unique voice in this time period. Portrayal of Black Southern dialect was only met with more criticism from her peers, who were trying to separate themselves from the ways of the South. However, Hurston's acceptance of it for writing involving Southern African Americans. Her novel, Their Eyes Were Watching God, follows a girl through her life as she experiences joy and sadness and learns to love and accept herself. This highly acclaimed novel features the dialect of Southern African Americans she was so often criticized for using. Its themes of female sexuality and clear lack of political argument only fueled her peers' criticism of the novel, calling it a blight of calculated burlesque, as one review states. Despite its criticisms, the novel went on to gain prominence in the African American community after her death in 1960. Hurston's writings, though they were published towards the end of the Harlem Renaissance, provided a new, yet still impactful view on the movement. She established a dynamic take on the lives of Southern Black Americans and opened the door to understanding their culture by providing a genuine representation of their culture and mannerisms. The dialect of the Black South added an authenticity to her writing that some of her peers' works lacked. This highlighted the contrast of Northern American culture against the Southern African American culture. Though different, both of these cultures are every bit a part of American culture as white American culture. Zora Neale Hurston just helped to present African American life in a way that wasn't political or refined to a Northern style.
Although the Harlem Renaissance revolved around the Black culture and revealing the Black identity, there were some aspects in this period of time that involved white individuals. Sinclair Lewis was an affluent white male who contributed heavily to the Harlem Renaissance. He did so with his written words and his attitude toward the modern society of America. Sinclair Lewis was a renowned novelist in the early part of the 20th century. His most famous and appreciated novels were published in the 1920s, a time period better known as the Harlem Renaissance. Lewis's first novel gained mass recognition was called Main Street. A novel which reflected Lewis's own life, became detailed as a vast aspect of the Harlem Renaissance. Main Street unveiled a secret of American life most people, especially whites, chose to ignore. It claimed that America's small-town life is not perfect, not a place of cultural diversity. Rather, it was a place of disparity. The freshly published satire contributed to the new redeeming of American culture and the melting pot which exists within American life. It allowed for the revealing of the cultural diversity and identity, the very core of the Harlem Renaissance. Main Street challenged American culture and diversification as it followed a heroine in a desperate search for diversity and change.
The Harlem Renaissance birthed unforgettable novelists whose main message was to vindicate the movement and redeem American culture, as well as to contribute to the enrichment of the melting pot American ideals were based on. Zora Neale Hurston's authentic view on the lives of Southern African Americans, when compared with the vastly different lives of those in the North, helped to emphasize the great diversity of African American culture. Wallace Thurman's desire to install a different mindset in the younger generation so that they can embrace both their culture and abilities helped motivate many young African American writers and artists to embrace their identity through their works. Another novelist known for his profound satires was Sinclair Lewis. He wrote with passion and attitude and found America diverse and thirsting for change. These novels expanded and furthered the diversification of American culture. They led to a massive movement of Black Americans claiming their identities in the turmoil of adversity. The Harlem Renaissance was the birthplace of true Black American culture. It was a period that will never be forgotten, for it gave Black Americans the power to raise their voice and claim their own identity.